Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Umar Khalidba. Today is the 19th of June 2025. These are the stories that we will be highlighting during the course of the show. We'll begin with the visit of our Field Marshal, Chief of the Army Staff, Asim Munir Sahab in the US, his meeting with the US President Donald Trump, and the importance of that meeting and the repercussions of that meeting on our not so friendly eastern neighbor and how they have lost it. As they have lost it since the post-Pahalgam false flag operation. We'll be highlighting different aspects of that meeting, what was discussed, what were the important factors and points and agendas of discussion during that meeting, and how important is this meeting in the whole context of the geopolitical, geostrategic scenario in the region. This is going to be our first story. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns India and Canada, and the row that continues between Canada and India, and the Canadian intelligence agency that says in a report that is published on Wednesday, that is yesterday, that India is a perpetrator of foreign interference. This is a continuity of what has been said by the former Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, the foreign minister Melanie Joly, and so many others, as far as Indian interference in other countries' affairs and transnational terrorism. This will be the topic of our second story. Let's begin with our first, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns the visit of our Chief of the Army Staff, Field Marshal Asim Munir, to the US. The importance of that, the timing of that, the implications of that. Positive for us, positive for our collaboration with the US, and extremely negative for our not so friendly eastern neighbor India. We have been joined by Rear Admiral Faisal Shah Saab, defense analyst, in the studios, and we will also be joined by another guest in the studio online a bit later in the show. Thank you very much, Rear Admiral Faisal Shah Saab, to have accepted our invitation. How significant is the Field Marshal's meeting with the US President Donald Trump in resetting, re-energizing the Pakistan-US strategic partnership, specifically in this post-crisis South Asian security environment?
Thank you very much, Umar, for having me in your program. I think this is very significant. The timing is very significant, and the whole episode is very significant. You see, this is happening after Pahalgam, in which Pakistan rose as a successor. And President Trump claims that he mediated,
yes,
which Pakistan endorses.
And India denies.
India has been denying. So this is very significant. It aligns US and Pakistan in that context, and and Trump is happy that Pakistan acknowledges his efforts for mediation, and Pakistan accepted that. So in recognition of that, he invited Field Marshal Asim Munir to thank him personally. So this is very significant that COS or army chief of a country is being invited by President of the United States for a one-on-one meeting, just to thank him that he accepted his mediation.
Well, that was not the only thing that was discussed during the meeting.
Yeah,
but
this is one thing.
Yeah,
this is one thing. The other thing is that US and Pakistan have been collaborating in counter-terrorism operations, and I think that must have been the main focus of discussion. And US authorities have been very, very grateful to Pakistan for providing them or apprehending those culprits who were involved in taking lives of Americans. Now, this has been an acknowledgement from the US to Pakistan authorities earlier also, and I think in this discussion also it must have been acknowledged very well by Donald Trump. And then Donald Trump saying that it was an honor for me to meet Field Marshal. I think this is something very, very significant for the whole nation. I think it's very important for Pakistani nation and the friends and foes of Pakistan also, that where Pakistan-US strategic alliance is going.
I think clarity has come through this meeting. Clarity has come through the importance that has been given by the US to this meeting.
Yes, exactly. And you see the menu of the meeting, the timings of the meeting, the location of the meeting, it's all very significant, and those were all actually projected and propagated by Americans more than Pakistanis. So that shows how significant it was for Americans as much as it was for Pakistanis.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the entourage that was there in the meeting. Marco Rubio is there, the Secretary of State. Steve Witkoff is there, who's a special representative as far as Middle East is concerned. And from our side, Pakistan's National Security Advisor, DGISI, is present in that meeting as well. The entourage becomes extremely important because of the people that represent it. Secondly, how should we interpret this whole engagement in terms of Washington's evolving priorities in South Asia as well as in the Muslim world?
See, the presence of Mr. Witkoff and our National Security Advisor is more significant. I'm sure, and it has come to light also, that Iran situation was discussed at length.
So was Palestine.
Because we are neighborly country to Iran, and we have had historical and religious relations, traditional relations with Iran, and they are going to be our neighbors till doomsday also. So we understand them and they understand us. So there might have been some discussion on whatever is going on and what is going to happen. But one good thing was that from both sides, it was shared, the concern was shared that this conflict must come to an end. It should find some resolution, it should find some conclusion. And that is a positive thing that I see coming out of that communique that was released by the White House and by our ISPR also.
All right, does this historic luncheon and the Oval Office meeting signify a recognition of Pakistan's indispensable role as far as regional peace and global counter-terrorism efforts is concerned?
Questions are arising actually about this meeting, that previously also US and Pakistan came closer and then went away. And it has happened many times, and US leadership has been saying that we want long-term partnership with Pakistan, but then they went away, went far. I think this repetition of these episodes itself signifies the importance of Pakistan, that Pakistan cannot be obviated, the importance of Pakistan cannot be obviated or neglected by any power in the world. They have to come back, to fall back to Pakistan, and they need Pakistan, especially in this region, let alone
Pakistan is so strategically placed, if nothing else, just the point alone of the Pakistan strategic geopolitical, geo-economic placement in the whole region.
Yes, absolutely. Pakistan is in one of the most, advantageous location here in the region. It connects Central Asia, West Asia, South Asia. Then we have sea in the south, which connects us to the rest of the world, to whole world. So that's very, very blessed geographical location that Allah Ta'ala has provided us.
I agree with you on that, but I'd also like to understand, Admiral Saab, how crucial, we did allude to it a little bit earlier in the program, how crucial was President Trump's intervention in brokering the Pakistan-India ceasefire, also in saying that it is ready to mediate as far as the Kashmir issue is concerned. How does this reflect on Washington's willingness to engage constructively in South Asian conflict resolution?
I think there is a resolve on part of America to intervene and carry out mediation between Pakistan and India on the Kashmir issue also, on all the issues across the board, especially Kashmir issue. But the problem is that it has to be done with the consent of both parties also.
And we know that there was a telephonic conversation between Modi and Trump, and of course Modi highlighted this very fact.
Yes, but President Trump has that leverage. He has that lever that he can use against India also. And at some point in time, I believe he might use that leverage to ask India to come to the table, sponsored or patronized by US. So we see light at the end of the tunnel, but it is dim.
But it is there, you know, that is the important fact, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Does this development also further isolate India diplomatically, especially after its repeated rejections of third-party mediation on regional issues, on any kind of talks, and on the Kashmir issue?
This mere meeting actually puts them on very defensive footings. You see, no Indian leadership, no Indian leader has been invited to the White House after Pahalgam. It was only yesterday that President Trump and Prime Minister Modi talked on phone. Even in G7 minute, he did not G7 meet. He did not meet Indian Prime Minister. So this is very significant on part of diplomacy, where Pakistan is going and where India is heading to.
All right.
So India is perhaps regressing, Pakistan is advancing.
All right.
And when US President calls Army Chief of Pakistan and says Pakistanis are very good people, you know, in Urdu we say Rab khush te sab khush. So the message travels to whole
very
of the world.
fast, you know, on the speed of light. We've been joined by Brigadier Nadir Mir, who's a defense analyst. Brigadier Sahab, thank you very much to have joined us. With both the sides also, that is the Pakistan and the US side, reaffirming counter-terrorism cooperation, how, in your point of view, can Pakistan leverage its successes against terrorism? It has many in the past years as well, to deepen military and intelligence partnerships with the US.
Pakistan has been fighting the war against terror or the terrorists very successfully, albeit at a great cost and sacrificing so much over the years. And more recently, as you know, President Trump acknowledged that himself, and not only President Trump, the CENTCOM general also, and others also in the United States. But more recently, the latest event has been the visit of Field Marshal Syed Asim Munir to the White House and his meeting with President Trump over lunch. That's the high point. And obviously, counterterrorism and terrorism against Daesh and other such terrorist forces has been part of the agenda. But that's not all. I think it's much more than that. It's geopolitics overall. President Trump has a worldview of his own. That is first, as you have seen. And secondly, he's being the president of the United States. He's dealing with so many issues. That is the Iran war, in which the United States may be sucked in or may have to intervene as the war is now beyond the first week of Israel-Iran war. And besides that, there are so many other issues. Pakistan's interest previously and more so after the India-Pakistan war of the last month, is that its western flank, its western front, that is Afghanistan, Iran, and all that has been happening. And what has been happening on that side is basically terrorism. So the counter-terrorism. On the Indian side, it is basically conventional war that we have faced, as you've seen. And on the western front, or the western border of Pakistan, we have faced a terrorist war, although that terrorist war is greatly linked to India, as I've been saying previously. So Pakistan has a very keen interest in this, and the Americans too have an interest in it. But what I'm trying to highlight is the American interest is no longer limited to the terrorists, because basically they've gone out of Afghanistan, and now they are more into the power competition. One,
by this meeting between Trump with our Field Marshal. Brigadier Saab, I'd like to understand, could this meeting between both leaders pave the way for renewed US-Pakistan military engagement or training programs, joint operations, particularly in the light of the recent threats that are facing both the countries, whether it be by Indian-sponsored proxies or ISIS offshoots?
First of all, this was a splendid visit, meeting of the Field Marshal and the American president by any standard. The whole world is talking about it, so I don't have to explain it. It's very evident. You see, it's basically unprecedented in the sense, though Pakistani military have met the American presidents previously, but it has been in the capacity of head of state, head of government, and all that. And only General Kiani met him briefly, President Obama, and that too was a meeting which was by chance. It was not a meeting like this one in which the Field Marshal, Syed Asim Munir, was directly invited. And it was not just one subject. That's what I'm trying to highlight. As you can see from what the news is and what was expected, a long list of things were discussed. The meeting lasted over 2 hours, whereas it was supposed to be less than 1 hour. And the best part of this is that I'm sure that, and we are all very confident, as that has turned out, that our Field Marshal, like he won the war against India, similarly on the diplomatic table or in the White House, he has not only been able to explain the case of Pakistan personally to the President of the United States, but a lot of good news and a lot of facilitation will follow, and that includes what you've asked. It could include military training with the United States, which we have been having this military training relationship. I went to the United States for a military course at Fort Knox, the U.S. Army School, and so many other officers of Pakistan military, Army, Air Force, Navy have been going there and joint exercises and even some military equipment. You see, some of our military equipment is American even now. So you need spare parts and you need upgradation and other things. So overall, it is a relationship which is going to get a big boost. I mean, this meeting itself, this lunch at the White House is a big boost. What I am trying to say is that it is going to go beyond just the military affair. It's overall, it's geostrategic, it's geopolitical. That's the most important thing. When you have a geopolitical relationship, then economics, military, technology, AI, and so many other things come into it. So the military is not just what it used to be. The military is now I would say it's now one of the most technologically advanced forces, as you've just witnessed in the war that we had, with India, and the way the PF was able to do it. It was all technology besides the expertise of the PF, I mean. So what I'm trying to say is that overall, it is a tremendous boost for Pakistan's relations, and US-Pakistan affinity should go to the next bound, which of course is total disaster from the Indian point of view. And the simple proof is, see the Indian media, see the Indian reaction, and you'll know, and the whole world knows the way the Indians are, behaving. They are behaving like school children who are crying for some, over spilled milk.
All right, Brigadier Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. We have to go to a short break. We'll be right back to continue this discussion. See you right here to PTV World. Welcome back to Newsroom, and we are of course discussing the visit of our Chief of the Army Staff Field Marshal Asim Munir to the US, the important meeting that he's had with Donald Trump, and the whole context of that meeting. We now have been joined by Dr. Salma Malik. She's a foreign affairs expert. Thank you very much, Dr. Salma. It's always a pleasure to discuss with you. How does the Pakistan-US talk or discussion, as per the reports that they've talked about the Iran-Israel conflict as well, how does this reflect a broader diplomatic alignment? What role, in your point of view, could Pakistan play as a stabilizing force in the Muslim world?
Thank you so much, Umar, for having me in the show. Number one, we must not forget that when India initiated the aggression against Pakistan in May 2025, the Iranian foreign minister was in Pakistan, and he played a very, very crucial role in doing shuttle diplomacy between the two countries. He carried the message to Delhi, and Delhi scooped him off. They were very rude to him. They made memes about it, and I mean, they totally disregarded the good offices of a friendly country, and a very friendly country to Delhi. And then now that unfortunately Iran is in such a situation, Pakistan has very openly stated the fact that we stand with Iran, we stand with Iran's truthful stance, and we stand against Israel's aggression. Pakistan stands, especially after May 2025, in a very strong role that we can not only play as a good friendly mediator, especially with regards the US, talking to the US about it, talking to the US about the concerns about how the region can become very volatile in case things go in a different direction. We can act as the bridge between USA and Iran, and of course not Israel, but we can also be a very strong rallying factor for the rest of the Muslim countries to come on a common platform, stand with Iran against Israel, and seek peace and mediation and cessation of hostilities. So I think Pakistan has this clout, Pakistan has this positive aspect to it, and if we do the right stuff at the right junction, the strong advocacy that Pakistan can very well do, and having Pakistan's military high command in the US, having access to the top brass, talking to the American president, I think I'm quite sure that this message has been put across, and we are already doing the necessary work that needs to be done in this regard.
All right. Rear Admiral Faisal Saab, what opportunities does, in your point of view, Trump's interest in expanding trade and cooperation in areas such as AI, cryptocurrency, minerals and energy offer to Pakistan's economy and youth-driven tech sector?
Yes, I think there are a lot of opportunities that both countries can collaborate in, especially economic related. And I mean, US is already our biggest trading partner, and we can just further expand that scope with the inclusion of these things like mines and minerals and cryptocurrency and things like that. Plus, Pakistani youth, we have more than 60% of population about 30 or 35 years of age. And they are very deft and very apt in the emerging technologies.
True.
So we can have them trained there, or we can send them there, and they can be a good collaboration avenue between the two countries, I think. So there are a lot of opportunities, especially the human resource of Pakistan, that can be of great use to America and Pakistan as well, both countries.
All right, all right. Brigadier Nadir Mir Saab, what in your point of view could be the symbolic importance of this meeting being extended for over 2 hours, and how does this reflect on not only our collaboration relationship, but also the rapport between our Chief of the Army Staff and the US President?
Till recently, or rather before this India-Pakistan war of the last month, the Indians were assuming that in case of conflict or war with Pakistan, United States would support India. I mean, that was one of the Indian assumptions which went wrong. Apart from the fact that the Chinese supported Pakistan all out, United States also supported Pakistan because Pakistan stood for peace and United States brought about the ceasefire, or helped for a ceasefire. So now, as far as this meeting is concerned, I've called it a splendid meeting because from all points of view, whether it is optics, whether it's the picture which emerges, because in the social media and in the media today, you know, the first thing is the way the world views it. From that angle, and also from the point of substance, as I said, a 2-hour-long meeting in which a long list of subjects were discussed, and the main subjects is quite evident, is geopolitics and geoeconomics, and the long list within that. So overall, I would say Pakistan in U.S. relations, because of this meeting of the Field Marshal Sayyid Asim Munir with President Trump, is at another level, which was certainly not there before. And you know what President Trump has been saying in the previous term and even earlier. So it's at another level, and he's developed, as you said very correctly, there's something known as a personal rapport. Although there's national interest involved of all states, especially global powers like USA have policies laid out for decades. But even there's a lot of scope within because of the relationship between the leaders or hearing the direct viewpoint, which Field Marshal gave it himself. Nobody could be better, I mean, from the Pakistani national point of view. So it's a very big achievement for Pakistan. The people even have called it a diplomatic victory. I mean, this is what people have called it, a diplomatic victory, like Pakistan had a military victory over India. So the Indians, as I said earlier, are in a state of grief. Although, I mean, for a nation of that size or who keep claiming themselves, it shouldn't be. But anyway, that is what it is.
All right, that is what it is. That's a very interesting perspective, and with that we come to an end of this first segment. Let's begin on the second important story of the day, and that concerns India as a perpetrator of foreign interference. We're not saying it, the Canadian Intelligence Agency is saying it. We all know what happened in Canada with Mr. Niger. We all know how the former Canadian Premier openly pointed fingers at India, how the Canadian Foreign Minister also pointed fingers at India, and how that created a row between both Canada and India. Now, Canada's intelligence agency, in a report that is published yesterday, talks about India as a perpetrator of foreign interference just after India's and Canada's Prime Ministers vowed to strengthen ties at a global summit, that is a G7 summit that was hosted by Canada. Dr. Salma Malik, and this is so interesting for me because we have talked many a times in the past about this Canada-India rift, India's transnational terrorism and also and sundry. What does the Canadian Intelligence Agency's explicit, and I'll underline it twice, explicit labeling of India as a perpetrator of foreign interference reveal about New Delhi's role in orchestrating transnational repression and targeting killings abroad?
Well, not only that, New Delhi's role in having the Iranian top brass being assassinated is also something which is very alarming to note. And this is from the words of an Iranian journalist himself, rather more than several of them, who said that these were people who were living with us, who were working with us, and we considered them like our brothers. And actually they were working for Israel, they were their sleeper agents, and they did what they had to do. So this kind of, like, I think if I'm allowed to be a bit self-critical, we have been too nice and kind when it comes to India's role in perpetuating terrorism, violence and insurgency in Pakistan, especially in Balochistan and KP. We have always said there is a foreign hand, one of the neighboring countries that you all know about. And there you have India actually not only naming Pakistan for anything and everything that goes wrong in that country, but also in the middle of the night carrying out surgical strikes against us, and then of course getting the taste of the bitter medicine themselves. Thanks to Allah for that. But the fact is that I think Pakistan should have been very, very vocal and blatant about India's role in creating disturbances within Pakistan. And it's I must say that God has been kind to us, that they have managed to be exposed, not only in Canada, in the US, in some other Middle Eastern countries, and now in Iran.
In the UK as well, we should not
And the
forget,
UK
and in
as well.
Australia as well.
Absolutely.
Rear Admiral Faisal, isn't it, we all remember how India went to the IMF, to the FATF after the false flag operation in Pahalgam to label Pakistan as a terrorist state and to put Pakistan back in the grey list and to stop the aid coming from the IMF. Isn't it time for the international community now, including the UN, Western allies, the FATF, to formally recognize India as a state actor involved in extrajudicial killings and transnational terrorism, similar to how rogue states are labeled? Shouldn't India be now in the grey list?
I think the time is ripe and it is the right time. You see, after Pahalgam, even 14 days after Pahalgam, till 14 days, India could not muster that diplomatic support that it could during 2016 and 19 episodes. Why? Because between 2019 and 2025, the government of India was itself found involved in overseas terrorist activities, just like Canada. There were reports from US also, and the Australian government also gave proof to Indian government that your government-backed agents are involved in terrorist activities or planning terrorist activities in our country. And now this episode of Iran. So Indian government, the dark side of Indian government has been revealed, has been exposed.
And continues to be exposed.
Yes, by different governments, international government, and that's why India could not gain that diplomatic support there. Now this meeting of COS with US President, I mean, that is again stamp on that.
Exactly.
That luckily Pakistan, fortunately or unfortunately, Pakistan went into grey list of FATF and it completed all prerequisites to come to white list. So the world was convinced that Pakistan was not involved in anything like that. Then we are with the IMF program. IMF totally knows what's our economic health. So a country with this economic health would not like to get involved in activities
or
like
damage
this.
it in any way whatsoever.
So it was all in the benefit of Pakistan that was happening with India or Pakistan that ultimately gave us advantage.
All right, Brigadier Nadimir, are you still with us? All right, Brigadier Nadimir, what implications in your point of view does this have for all the Indian intelligence networks that are operating under diplomatic cover in countries such as the UAE, the United Kingdom, even Pakistan via their proxies?
First of all, India stands exposed, as has just been discussed by the panelists in multiple countries. And it's no longer a secret, if it ever was. Secondly, actually what has happened is that India's, as I've been saying in your programs much earlier, India's oversized geopolitical agenda, which has been based on terrorism in countries like Pakistan and other neighboring countries, and assassinations all over the world, and that kind of, nefarious and terrorist activities, is not only exposed, it has brought about a situation where it is being viewed that India is an aggressive, expansionist, and a state which is not following the international rules. There are rules. You can't, diplomatic rules and carrying out assassinations don't go together. And so the point is that overall, if you see, reflect on it, what it is overall a failure of India's national security policy and India's this desire and its wish to become a global power through assassinations and killings and terrorism and bomb blasts and that. I mean, that is a path India has chosen to become a great power. Well, no country became a great power if you read British history and American history and other countries which rose to become great powers through those means. Somebody might have done it once in a while, it happens, these things happen once in a while, but not as policy. So what I'm trying to say is basically it's the failure of Indian policy and India's aggressive policy. And if you see, as has been just mentioned, India failed to get diplomatic support. It is one on account of India's terrorist assassination attempts, and secondly, by the way, nobody wants India as a global power or as a great power in the world because this is a rule-based order in which even the Chinese, you see the Chinese who are far ahead of the Indians, they don't do these things, and so many other countries who are rich countries or who have influence, they don't resort to these things. So I would say it's a failure of India's national security policy, and this is a total reflection of that.
It also, unearths the real or the true face of India under Narendra Modi. Dr. Salma Malik, despite these damning findings by the Canadian intelligence and previous reports that were highlighted by the former Prime Minister of Canada as well, why is the West still reluctant to hold India accountable? Why are there still diplomatic engagements with the Modi government going on?
I guess a lot has to do with the fact that India has the type of money that a bankrupted global order is actually looking for. India has an appetite for weaponry, which can only be satiated when the military industrial complex sells them with heavy equipment, and that keeps the MICs also pretty well fed. And that is how this interest keeps on moving. And the fact that the West had for the longest cultivated, I think even before the 1962 war with China, the West had very carefully cultivated India as the regional proxy. They were working on it and they kept on working on it, and India would go up and down, and they also knew that India was not exactly a reliable partner, but then over the decades India appeared to be much better off, and they struck a deal. And since 2000, this particular situation, 2003 and all, this particular situation has been the strategic partnership that they drove with India. We also should remember that when Pakistan and India both got their independence from British colonialism, given the virtue of India's size and its positioning in the global South Asia, India was a favored choice for most of the countries to kind of develop better terms with. It chose to remain non-aligned or not committed to any country. Non-alignment came much later. So they always wanted to warm up to India. But at the same time, any and every global actor who would want to warm up to India, they would feel that it is not a reliable partner. And this is something that you would find redacted in most of these files of the CIA, the KGB, and so on and so forth. But now that they have invested so much in India as the net security provider, the regional policemen, named the Indian and the Pacific Ocean as Indo-Pacific and all to counter China, I think today India stands exposed that it could not even manage its own home front, homegrown, homemade recipe of a war, let alone act as a regional security provider. So should it really be relied upon? Is it really a trustworthy partner? And just putting another spin to this thing, the recent airliner crash, you will also hear that there's a lot of noise being made in India, that it was not a pilot error, a massive tragedy. And our heart goes out to all the people who died with their families or with or without their families. Very unfortunate. So there's a blame shifting because India does not want this thing to come on it, that its manpower is insufficient.
And can you imagine the number of accidents that we've been hearing since there were this, and there were so many helicopter incidents, small plane incidents.
In 2019, they ended up shooting their own heli in the thick of the own inducted war. So there's a lot that India really has to grow up and become the regional policeman role. So I think the US, the West, they do have these ideas, but at the same time, they really want to see if they can have any other actor in this role. Pakistan doesn't fit the bill because Pakistan's relations with China are very, very deep and strong.
True.
So Pakistan cannot be the country that can help school China in another fashion. But India is the country which has really built the case very strongly.
So basically, all ears are deaf and all eyes are blind when it comes to
when
India.
it comes to self-interest.
All right. Rear Admiral Faisal Saab, why is India so threatened by peaceful advocacy by Sikh leaders abroad to the extent that it is allegedly executing assassinations and issuing threats even on Western soil?
Because there are so many insurgencies going on in India, and if anyone succeeds, there will be a domino effect on others. So be it Kashmiris, Sikhs, and Christians in Manipur, and other insurgencies that are going on in India, India is going to go after them and crush them at any cost, be it on domestic front or in overseas activities. So I think for India it is very important that although that secularism has been has faded away from the Indian fabric, but still they would like to pose to the world that we are the biggest democracy in the world, and we work on secularism, and everybody inside India wants to remain inside India as a united India. They just don't want to show their weaknesses to the world, but somehow these weaknesses spill over and people come to know about them. The problem with the West is that there is no alternative to India in the region as a potential challenger to China, and they have invested already so much in India, despite the fact that time and again India has proven that it cannot come up to their expectations. So this is a dilemma. That's a catch-22 situation.
It is definitely a catch-22 situation, to say the least. Brigadier Nadir Mir Sahib, given India's foreign interference in Canada that has been now proven more than once, its campaigns in Afghanistan, Nepal and even Pakistan, can they be seen as part of a broader Indian doctrine of destabilization?
Obviously, there's no doubt that India's, first of all, you see, India has this so-called global agenda, a global India plan, in which they are trying to make global India a global power, first by destabilizing, not by India being the greatest economy or the greatest military. You saw the Indian military in the 4-day war or other aspects, but by destabilizing other countries or other regions of the world. That is the first part. So obviously that is not acceptable to those who are being affected by it. That is one. But there's another point to it. I mean, what we have been discussing for some time now on your program. There has been I would call it nonchalant or a weakness on the Pakistani part also for so many years, because India didn't start doing it yesterday. India has been doing it for ages, and we did not respond to it like we should have. But now we are. So there is a policy change. There is policy clarity. There was lack of clarity in the Pakistan national security policy, regarding India. So as has been just mentioned, so there was a need to expose India and Pakistan. You see, Pakistan has a role in it, because like yesterday, the Indians said they don't want to be equated with Pakistan. Well, they are already equated with Pakistan, because when they confront Pakistan, the world sees the result of that confrontation. So Pakistan has a big role to it, and I don't agree that nothing can be done about it. I think a lot can be done about it. Geopolitics is very dynamic. It is never shackled. So the world is not the entire West is banking on India to contain China only. I mean, that is one aspect of it. There are many other aspects. The US, China, and President Trump is quite unpredictable, as you might have noted. So the Pakistan has a role to it. Pakistan has to play the geopolitical card. And Pakistan has to expose India, and Pakistan is to go beyond that also, not just exposing India, but Pakistan has to create alternatives. There have to be alternatives to everything. And Pakistan, not alone, but with other countries, it can bring about there is a new architecture, geopolitical architecture, which is coming up because there's a new global geopolitical order which is shaping. And Pakistan has a big role in it. And I said it earlier, I wrote an article also recently, nuclear armed Pakistan, fully supported by China, and now acknowledged by United States, has a geopolitical role, and Pakistan is going to rise, inshallah.
All right, inshallah. Dr. Salman Malik, quick answer from this question. How can Pakistan effectively use this moment, A, to press for greater international security on India's hybrid warfare tactics, and secondly, international investigation into RAW's global activities?
I think we should collect the evidence and make it public rather than just keep collecting the evidence and silently sending it to quarters which are concerned. You have a very strong presence of Indians in various world capitals in various capacities in all institutions.
True.
So they become the first line of defense for their countries. They immediately stop anything from passing further. Look at all the global institutions, we have the Indians sitting there at various capacities. So we need to step up our efforts. We need to not only step up our diplomatic, formal diplomatic efforts, we need to step up the multi-track diplomatic efforts at all fronts, citizen diplomacy, trade, a commercial thing. I think we also need to review how we are performing.
All right.
How are we selling or marketing our merchandise? What are the deficiencies that does not keep us from going 100%? So we really need to go back on the scoreboard, realize, choose the right people. They may not be formal diplomats only, they could be anyone. They could be subject experts, they could be those people who have worked in the field, who carry a clout, they're citizen diplomats sitting in the US, lobbyists and all. Work on them, work with them, and invest in the right quarters, and stop shying away from saying the India word when it comes to terrorism and anything that is harming Pakistan's interests.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Salman Malik. Thank you very much, Rear Admiral Faisal Shah Sahab, and thank you very much, Brigadier Nadir Mir Sahab, who have joined us for this very interesting and insightful discussion, not only on Pakistan-US relations, but also on India's tack, whether it be to destabilize Pakistan or to directly or indirectly destabilize even countries in the West. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.